Hi guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover and I'm here to bring you my TBR for the Irish Readathon 2023. So if you haven't yet known about the Irish Readathon, if you didn't see our previous announcement, I will leave that linked up above. I have a great selection of books as I do every year. I'm really excited to get into all of these, and yeah, I will show you what I'm planning to read for each prompt, which will kind of serve as a recommendation for you guys as well. And I'll also try and give some other different recommendations for each prompt as well. Now we do have a storygraph challenge, which I have added a lot of different books to those prompts as well, for people who are unsure of what they want to read or what they can read for these different prompts. So please do check out that storygraph challenge below as well. I will also link all my previous videos that I've done over the past few years for the Irish Readathon. I have a lot of recommendation videos in there and just general like videos about Irish books, some of them under different themes and topics, so I will leave all them there for you guys to browse through if you guys are interested in trying to find out different Irish books you would like to read or that might be available to you wherever you are in the world. So the first book I am going to read is obviously for the green book prompt. So this is the only book prompt on our list that is not specifically like supposed to be an Irish book. This is so anyone anywhere can take part in the Irish Readathon, even if they don't necessarily have access to books from Ireland or written by Irish authors. So this is basically to read a book that has green on the cover. So for this one I'm going to read Where I End by Sophie White. As you can see, there are some green bits in the cover, but also the spine is green as well. So this I think is kind of an interesting one, looking at I've read a book by Sophie White before. I think I read it last year, but it was like a kind of more women's contemporary fiction book, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. But I know that she also publishes books under Tramp Press, which is an independent publisher, where they're a little bit more kind of like literary, I guess. And this one I think has a little bit maybe of a kind of horror-esque feeling to it. So this one, the back of it says, Aileen has never left the island. Her silent, bed-bound mother is the survivor of a private disaster no one will speak about. Aileen desperately wants a family, and when artist Rachel and her baby move to the island, Aileen finds a focus for her relentless love. So I think we're looking at this woman's relationship with her mother, and obviously some trauma or something that has happened in the past. And then we also maybe see a new obsession that she kind of that grows within her for this other woman and her baby. So yeah, it's kind of going to be interesting to read this one. It's not too long. I think it's just over 200 pages. So this one isn't a long one, but it's one I've actually wanted to read for a while, and then I actually bought it this year. I bought it through Tramp Press. I always like kind of buying books from Tramp Press as well when I can, because they are an independent publisher and they do publish some really interesting books, a lot of books that have a real like kind of feminist focus to them as well. So I do always love buying books from Tramp Press when I can, so looking forward to reading this one. Next challenge here is to read a children's book. So this can be anything. This could be like, you know, a young children's book, it could be a middle grade book, or like preteen or YA book. So whatever you kind of have at hand will suit for this. So for this one I have a book that got sent to me, I think it was the end of last year, by O'Brien Press, which is a Irish publishers as well. And this is the Book of Secrets by Alex Dunn. It has this gorgeous kind of whimsical cover on it, and this is a book that's all about fairies. And in this one there is this town where this girl lives, and the year that she is there, there's like fairies have come to town for this kind of, they call it like a revel or some sort of kind of like festival, like a fairy festival, and the fairies have all kind of gathered in this place. But this little girl is under kind of some danger because of all these fairies, because she has the sight, so she can actually see all these fairies. And then it says here, but when the wild magic hurts her family, she needs to find a friend she can really trust. Together they face real danger and must use all their wits and bravery to save those they love before the sun rises. So yeah, I'm interested in reading this. I always love the O'Brien Press children's books that they send out to me. There are some ones they've sent out to me that I've really enjoyed, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Other ones that I've read in the past include Lily at Lisdale. That's one of my favourites, which is kind of a book just set in the 1900s, and we are seeing a young girl who's sent to kind of a big house to work as a maid, and she's quite young. She's only like, I think only 11 or 12, and she becomes friends with some of the other maids in the house, and also one of the daughters in the house as well. And we see her relationship with those in the house, and has a kind of a slight Downton Abbey feel, but like like for children, but I really enjoyed it, and there's a little bit of Irish history in there as well, which I really, really loved. Then one I read last year was The Beekeeper of Henrietta Street, which was also a really great historical fiction children's book, which looked at two children who, through family circumstances, had to move into one of the tenement houses on Henrietta Street in Dublin, and they're just trying to make ends meet, and they end up becoming friends with these people who run a circus, and one of the women who runs the circus is also a beekeeper, and we see how the circus kind of brings them into kind of gives them a little bit of spark back into their life. They've been feeling pretty down about a lot of things, and we see them just like making new friends, and there's just like this kind of excitement and joy with the circus. And there's also a real historical element of circuses in Ireland, and particularly in Dublin as well, because Ireland has like a really long tradition of holding circuses. So yeah, it was just really interesting to read all about that too. So that's one I would also really recommend. And then obviously for YA, one of our group reads for a couple of years ago was The Henna Wars by Adiba Jargadar. This is one I really, really enjoyed. It also has Hanny and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating, and then her new book A Million to One is a historical fiction Titanic heist story, which I read back in January, which you'll be able to see in my January wrap up. I think The Henna Wars has probably been my favourite out of all the ones that I have read. So yeah. So for commercial fiction, I have a couple of options for commercial fiction. So one of the books that I have ready to read on audiobook is actually Light a Penny Candle by Maeve Binchy, and that is over 600 pages. It's about like a 19-20 hour audiobook. So that's the audiobook I'll be reading from the start of March onwards. Definitely counts for commercial fiction. Maeve Binchy would be pretty well known as more like, I guess women's fiction in Ireland, but generally, like, I mean, she's known, like, she's a bestseller. Also anything by Marion Keyes would work really, really well. I'm actually currently reading Rachel's Holiday, but I might have that finished before March, so I can't really count that, but I'm quite enjoying that at the moment as well. I also have The Nothing Man by Catherine Ryan Howard, which is kind of a thriller crime book, which could be classed as commercial fiction as well. I have that one on my Kindle, but I could also get that on audiobook, so that might be an audiobook listen for me at some point, though that's kind of a maybe. And then another book I'm really looking forward to reading is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent, which is kind of again another crime thriller suspense book. Liz Nugent is really good at creating like suspense novels, so that's one that I'm really, really interested in reading as well. Some other commercial fiction authors that you might not be aware of that might be really easy to accessible through libraries and bookshops and stuff like that would probably be authors like Patricia Scanlon, Kathy Kelly, Tana French, and obviously of course Louise O'Neill, who is one of my favourites as well. So yeah, there's loads. I think there's so many different options for commercial fiction. You could almost pick up any book, and unless it's like a real literary or very niche kind of book, I think they could all be classed as commercial fiction. So yeah, I think this one is a great prompt because I think it gives people so many different choices. So for the prompt to read either a very long Irish book or a very short Irish book, for the long book obviously I can choose Light a Penny Candle by Maeve Binchy, which I have just talked about, and then depending on how I'm feeling or depending on how my reading goes throughout the month, I do have this kind of bind up of the Country Girls trilogy by Edna O'Brien, and this is the 3 books altogether. So it is almost 700 pages, 670 pages, and this is one that I've been really wanting to read for like ages. I've been wanting just to read all of them. I did listen to The Country Girls a few years ago, which was narrated by Edna O'Brien, which I really liked, but I think that might have been a slightly condensed version of it. I don't think it was the full novel, so I want to read it again and read it in full in physical format, and then obviously go on and read the second and third. So I don't know if I'll get to that this year. It's one I've always, like the last few years, I keep picking it up and being like, oh, I really want to read these, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So hopefully maybe I'll be able to read it this year. I don't know, but it could be this kind of bind up would be a good option for a very long book as well. For my very short books, I actually have 2 poetry collections here. Again, one of them is one I've been meaning to read from like start to finish. With poetry books, I tend to pick them up, flick through them, read a few poems and then put them down. So for these ones I just want to read them from start to finish and hopefully really enjoy them. The first one is To Star the Dark by Deirdre Nagrifa. Everyone knows Deirdre Nagrifa wrote one of my favourite books a couple of years ago, which was A Ghost of the Troth. Absolutely loved that. Loved her lyrical writing. I just loved the way she wrote so much. It was so beautiful. And flicking through this poetry book in the past, I have come across some poems that I've really, really enjoyed, but I just haven't read it from like back to front or front to back. So yeah, I maybe would like to do that this year and use it for that prompt. Another one I actually have is Bargain Bin Romcom by Lena Norms, who is like our own Lena Norms from BookTube or from YouTube that a lot of people know. Now, people might be like, Eva, Lena is English. But here's the thing. I'm pretty sure either one or both of Lena's parents are Irish, and if she wanted to get an Irish passport, she would be able to, which I think she's talked about before in her videos. I don't know if she's actually gone through with it yet or not. I think she is like still thinking about it. I don't know. But yeah, you could count Lena and like Lena's poetry collection for this readathon if you have it, because technically Lena can class herself as Irish if she wants to. I might pick this up as well, because again, this is one that's just been on my bookshelf since it came out, since I got it, and it's one I would like to read, and I think it would just be a nice little like thing to read maybe before I go to bed a couple of nights. And from what Lena has shown of her poetry in the past, like on her channel, I've quite enjoyed it, and I always really enjoy kind of her writing videos as well, her writing vlogs, where she kind of talks about some of the process as well as some of the kind of the prompts and stuff she uses to create little poems, which are always really interesting. So yeah, I might pick this up. I have come up with a couple of different recommendations for each of the Buzzword prompts. I'm not sure if I'll be able to read a book for every single prompt during the month. I would like to, but we will see if that actually happens. So for the first prompt is Pride, and I actually have a book that I'll probably be reading an audiobook as well once I finish Light Penny Candle. This will probably be my next audiobook that I will read during March, and that is Heiress Rebel Vigilante Bomber by Sean O'Driscoll. And I don't know whether this is a non-fiction book or if it is a fictionalized story about a person in real life. And this is a story about a woman called Rose Dugdale, who was an English heiress who then kind of dedicated her life to fighting for Irish freedom and dedicating her life to the IRA. So yeah, this is kind of going to be interesting. I don't know too much about, well, I don't know anything about her except that there's a book about her, but I think this will be really interesting. Kind of Pride kind of goes into, I guess, would connect very strongly with me in terms of Irish freedom. So I'll be interested to reading this, see if I like it, see what the story is about Rose and who she was. For the next buzzword is Home, and for Home I've decided to try and read Seven Steeples by Sarah Baum. This is actually going to be a priority for me in March. I really want to read this one in March because I did get it last year and I talked about it and I still haven't picked it up. I was kind of like saving it for the Irish Readathon. Every time I talk about this I say it is just the most gorgeous edition of a book. It's like this short little, like, it's just really nice to hold, and I say it'll be really nice to read. I know that probably sounds really weird, but I'm hoping you guys know what I mean. It's about a couple who decide to basically cast off their, I guess, their modern life, and they move to the countryside with their dog to kind of live a more isolated life. So they're kind of creating a home elsewhere. And it says, taking place in a remote house in the southwest of Ireland, this rich and vivid novel spans 7 years and speaks to the times we live in, asking how better to live in the natural world and how the choices we make lead us home. So yeah, I think this is kind of self-explanatory why I'm choosing it for the home prompt. But one of the reasons I'm also choosing it is like the idea of just leaving your life in the city and going to the countryside and creating a whole new life is very very appealing to me. Sometime in my future I would like to up everything and move to Donegal, but it probably won't be for a long time. So yeah, this until then I can live it through book form. So for the buzzword of language, I have chosen 32 Words for Field by Monaghan McGann. I actually don't have the physical copy of this because my brother is reading it. I've kind of handed that book around to a lot of people in my life since I first read it, and that is all about the Irish language, and it kind of was a book that really prompted me to start thinking about my relationship with like the Irish language and how I can improve that. I still haven't improved it, but it definitely has made me think more about what I would like to do in the future, at some point in the future, about improving the Irish language. But I would really recommend that one. Speaking of Monaghan McGann, for the next buzzword is Spring, and for this one I'm thinking of Listen to the Land Speak, which is a journey into the wisdom of what lies beneath. So this is also by Monaghan McGann. As you can see, this is his latest release, and this is one I got for my birthday. In this one it's just looking at like Ireland's relationship to the natural world, Irish people, the culture, and how we, you know, throughout Irish history we have listened to the land, and how maybe I think we can start doing that again, and how we can be better at doing it. He uncovers the myths and lore that have shaped a national identity that is quietly embedded in the land which has endured ice ages, famine and flood. So yeah, I think when I think of spring I think of nature, and I think of, you know, green, I think of fields, I think of Irish countryside. So that is what makes me kind of think about this book. And then in that sense as well, I also have this gorgeous book, which is A Natural Year by Michael Fewer. This is a book I picked up on a whim last year when I was in a Hodges Figus in town in Dublin. And I'd never heard about it before, but there's something about it that just made me want to pick it up. Like, if you're looking at this book, you're thinking of like all the different, you're thinking spring, you're thinking autumn, summer. I think there's so much going on in terms of nature and seasons in this book. And this is basically what it says. It is the diary of Michael, who I think, is he a naturalist? He's a travel writer. I don't know whether he wrote it during maybe the lockdowns, I'm not sure, but this is basically a diary, a year in his life, where he's just talking about the nature around him and what he was seeing, and what he was seeing like change around him all the time in terms of the nature around his house and on his walks and stuff like that. So it looks like a very, very lovely, relaxing read. Again, one I've been wanting to read since I got it, and the Irish Readathon is obviously the perfect time to read it. So it comes with some gorgeous it comes with photos as well of like what he's talking about, and some lovely illustrations as well. So we have some like illustrations of the birds and stuff, which are very, very cute. For the prompt of knowledge, I have chosen another non-fiction, and for this one I've gone with Bessborough. So that this is 3 Women, 3 Decades, 3 Stories of Change by Deirdre Finnerty, and this is about the Bessborough Women's mother and baby home. It's one of the biggest mother and baby home like institutions at the time. Deirdre is just looking at 3 women who've obviously been connected to that home and their stories and what happened to them. She talks to a trio of remarkable women confined there in the 60s, 70s and 80s who tell their truth. So it takes us right inside the walls of the secretive institution and gives us a deep insight into how their experiences impacted their lives afterwards. So yeah, this is again one I've been saving for the Irish Readathon that I'm really looking forward to. It actually has like really big writing in it too, so this one will probably be a very quick read as well. But I really like reading books on this topic, even though they're really, really hard. I think that knowledge is really, really important, particularly as an Irish woman myself. Next prompt is dogs, and I don't think there's any explanation why people were saying dogs for when we were asking for prompts, because my dogs normally at some point will show up on my channel. So for dogs, you could choose Seven Steeples if you had this one, because I do think that they do have their dog with them in this book, so their dog is part of the story. But a book I've had on for a really, really long time is actually this book called Dog Tales by Andrea Hayes. Andrea Hayes was like kind of I think she's a journalist, and she was a presenter for a TV show at some time in Ireland where they were working with Dogs Trust, and they were showing kind of like the dog. It was almost like a little bit like Paul O'Grady's For the Love of Dogs, where he went into like Battersea Dogs Home. It was a little bit like that, except it was Andrea was going into Dogs Trust in Ireland and just getting dog stories and seeing like adoption stories and stuff like that. So this is just basically what you would think. It's just the stories of a bunch of different dogs finding their homes and like what happened to them. So yeah, I've had this for ages and I have not read it, and it even came with this like really cute bookmark. So yeah, I think I might try and pick that one up during the Irish Readathon to finally have read it. And yeah, it's about dogs, so like I'm gonna like it. Next buzzword was feminism. Again, I think everything that myself and Leanne read, we both read a lot of books that have like a real focus on feminism, and I think a lot of Irish books now and a lot of Irish fiction and non-fiction, there is a real, I feel like I did a video last year about the rise of the Irish female novelist, but I would also talk about the Irish female voice in general in literature, in non-fiction and fiction. I think it's become stronger and stronger and stronger over the years, and I think in terms of feminism, like you could read so many different books. You could read Louise O'Neill, you could read Sarah Maria Griffin, you could read some Deirdre Sullivan. Like there are so many like different authors you could be reading. Marion Keyes, some of her books would have a real like feminist slant to them as well. One book I would recommend is a book I read last year, which was Repeal the Eighth, which was a non-fiction book around the kind of Repeal the Eighth movement and Ireland's historic kind of relationship with abortion rights and with a woman's right to choose, or with a person's right to choose. And it kind of goes to like everything that was done for the Repeal the Eighth movement, but everything that still needs to be done after that. The fight isn't over yet. And it really opened my eyes to all the work that had come before that, those few like really intense years of the Repeal the Eighth movement, that there was so much like groundwork done all those years before that, and there's still a lot of work to do since for like other like so many different people in Ireland, that like what we have, it's good, but it's still not good enough. And yeah, it was really, really interesting to read, so I would definitely recommend that. I think anything around like say Bessborough, Republic of Shame, anything around like the woman, anything around mother and baby institutes in Ireland as well, I think would have a feminist slant, because I feel like it is women taking back their stories and like finding their voice and telling their own story, which I think is really, really important. I actually have this book that I bought last year, which is Ton, the Women's Stories, and this is about, I think, kind of the Irish myth of, I think it's the Bull of Cool, or something around that. This is basically like a feminist retelling of some Irish myths around that. And yeah, I don't know too much about it yet. I did when I bought it last year, and then I didn't read it. But I had to go, like, this is like obviously kind of like I don't know whether it's self-published or it is independently published. I can't remember exactly where I bought it. It is a lovely edition. It is, but it's kind of like falling apart, as you can see. Like from the moment I got it, it was kind of like this, unfortunately. So I'll have to be really, really careful when I'm reading it that it doesn't fall apart. So this is one I could read for the feminist prompt. Another one, again, I had this on my TBR last year and I never got around to it, which was Feminism Backwards by Rosita Sweetman, which I think is just looking at the feminist movement in Ireland. So again, my gran gave me this and I still haven't read it. I feel really, really bad, but so I do really, really need to read it. The friendship prompt, I think I could read The Country Girls again, which I have here. So this is obviously a book around two girls who are friends, and they kind of travel, they end up going off to Dublin and like living together, and they have a friendship. I don't know whether their friendship continues into into the second and third book. I presume it does. But I mean, the two girls are on the front as well. So yeah, I could definitely read this. If I'm reading this, I could include it for the prompt of feminism, or not feminism, for friendship. Again, if you're reading things from Adiba Jargadar, there's friendship in there. Light a Penny Candle by Maeve Binchy, that also is about, that story itself is about a friendship. It actually reminds me of Beaches, you know, the movie Beaches. That storyline of two girls who meet when they're really, really young, and then their friendship kind of like stays and grows as they grow up and they go through all these life changes. They're always there for each other. That's basically what Light a Penny Candle is about, from what I can tell. The Woman at 72, Derry Lane by Carmel Harrington, is about a friendship between two neighbours who both have a lot of things going on in their life, and they both end up helping each other. That one is an absolutely lovely book. I would really, really recommend it. And yeah, it will probably make you cry, but it's really, really good. Hoping I might be able to reread at some point this year. I don't know if I'll get it do it in March, but hopefully I will. That is In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is a fantasy, kind of urban fantasy book, and that has a friendship, like a golden trio friendship at the core of it. So if I reread that one, I could include that for the friendship prompt as well. And then another book I do have to read is a book that is actually about set in Belfast, Northern Ireland during World War II, and that is These Days by Lucy Caldwell. And while this is about two sisters, my friend actually gave this to me. She had read it and she thought I would really like it, so she gave it to me when I saw her. I think it was back in September when I was over with her in London, and she gave this to me. So I could include this, if I was reading this, I could put it into the prompt of friendship because my friend gave it to me. So yeah, I might read that during March and include that for this prompt. And then the last prompt is warmth, and I have to say I was actually really touched when people like said warmth, because I would definitely want to give that feeling off, like in my channel, in my videos. I want you to feel like you're sitting down with a friend, and that I'm a friend talking to you. And I'm really honoured that people might think that I give off, like, and Leanne as well, that we give off like a warm vibe with our videos and with our readathon and with our book recommendations. So yeah, that means a lot to me. So thank you for those people who did say warmth and things around that for that prompt. So a couple of books I have here for this is one of them I have to really recommend. I read it last year. It was Leonard and Hungry Paul by Ronan Hessian. If you want something that is just nice and sweet and warm, this is it. It is so, so cute. It is about two grown men who have this friendship. They're both two very simple souls, don't want much in life, just like get up every day and live their day enjoy their friendship, go home to their family homes and live their life. And this is literally just about them living their life, and it is just a lovely, lovely story about friendship and what it means to be an ordinary person who doesn't necessarily want an extraordinary life. And yeah, I really, really appreciated the message in this and the characters, and it is just a lovely, lovely book that I would really, really recommend. The book I would recommend for warmth is Make Yourself at Home by Kira Geraghty, which I read a couple of years ago. And this is about a woman who's going through some trouble, and she is being divorced. She's had to sell her home, and she's also in a little bit of trouble with the law after she was caught shoplifting. So she ends up having to move home to her parents' house, and her mum is, so she moves in with her mum, and her mum hosts this kind of alternative AA meetings. So she ends up meeting all these different people who are some sort of addicts in some way, but they end up creating this like really lovely kind of friendship circle. And even though she's very resistant of being back in her family home, there's kind of some memories from her childhood that she's not really like happy about, like having to relive or having to think about. She ends up settling back into her home and getting these friends and kind of renewing her relationship with her mother. And there's just a really lovely warm feeling about the entire book, and the friendships that are in there that are really, really lovely. It would also work for the prompt of friendship as well. So yeah, I would really recommend that one. So yeah, that is it for my TBR and recommendations. I hope this has helped some people think about the books they want to read. If you guys are going to be reading any of the books that I am reading, please let me know. I would love to know. We might be able to chat about it. Again, please, if you want to get involved in the readathon even more, you can join our Discord, which I will leave a link down below. We can chat about all the different things we're reading during the month. It'll be really, really fun. If you are going to read the group read, which is None of This is Serious by Catherine Prasifka, we will have the discussions there as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.